The police lights painted my quiet Texas driveway like a crime scene on a lazy Saturday morning. All because the HOA president decided my private property was her personal VIP parking spot. What she didn't count on was the quiet guy she'd spent months slandering finally hitting record on the security cameras and turning her power trip into the most viral suburban humiliation of the year. Life in Willow Creek Estates used to feel like the American dream on mute. Neat lawns. Kids on bikes. The occasional barbecue smell drifting through the air. I'd lived here 15 years. Long enough to watch the neighborhood grow up around me. After my divorce, it was just me and my daughter Lily on weekends. Working from home as a web developer in the garage I'd converted into an office. I kept to myself, not because I hated people, but because I'd learned the hard way that some folks mistake silence for weakness. Then Karen Whitaker moved in. She arrived like a real estate hurricane in Lululemon and pearls. Clipboard already in hand. Within a month she'd volunteered herself into the HOA presidency when the old board got tired. "We're going to elevate this community," she announced at her first meeting. Smiling that tight. Practiced smile that never reached her eyes. Almost immediately the tone shifted. Suddenly there were rules about mailbox colors. Approved shrub heights. And, my personal favorite, fines for visual disharmony. The first rumor hit my inbox via a concerned neighbor. Karen had been telling people I was that cold single dad who never participates and that I was probably keeping Lily from making friends because I skipped the mandatory potlucks. None of it was true. I'd just been quietly dealing with custody paperwork and deadlines. But Karen needed a villain to rally everyone around her vision of perfect order. And I was convenient. I stayed silent. I watched. I installed a few extra cameras around the property and kept meticulous notes. Patience, I've learned, is the ultimate flex. The first time she tested me was on a blistering July afternoon. I was in the garage when I heard the familiar click of her heels. There sat her gleaming white Range Rover. Halfway up my long, curving driveway. Engine idling while she took a loud FaceTime call about closing a huge listing. I walked out, wiped my hands on a rag, and tapped on her window. "Karen, you're on private property." Again. She lowered her oversized sunglasses, flashing that fake sweet smile. "Oh, Ethan, relax. It's literally 2 minutes. I'm on with a client. The driveway looks so unused. We're trying to foster a more welcoming neighborhood spirit. You know?" I pointed at the weathered wooden sign I'd put up years ago: "Private driveway, no parking, violators will be towed." That sign's been there since 2012. Deed says it's mine. All of it. Her smile twitched. "Well, the HOA is reviewing access easements for community benefit. We're all in this together. Ethan, don't be difficult." She reversed out fast enough to spit gravel onto my lawn. That was the moment I knew it wasn't about parking. It was about control. My refusal to bend was a personal insult to her authority. Over the next weeks the violation notices started arriving like clockwork. My non-compliant mailbox post, it was the wrong shade of brown. My aggressive rose bushes. One letter even claimed my security cameras were intimidating and violated aesthetic guidelines. I paid none of them. Instead I replied with scanned copies of my property deed and a polite note: "Please direct all future correspondence to my attorney." Karen escalated beautifully. At the next HOA meeting she pushed through a shiny new temporary community overflow parking policy. The rule stated that during events or high-traffic periods, residents could use any visually accessible driveway space. Translation: Karen decided my long driveway was now public overflow because it was connected to the street. I stood up in the community center. "You can't reclassify private property by vote, Karen." She tilted her head. All fake concern. Ethan. We're talking about community harmony. Are you really going to hoard space while neighbors struggle to park? The room got quiet. A few people nodded along because nobody wanted to be next on her list. I just smiled thinly and sat down. Inside, I was already planning. The real fun started during the annual Willow Creek Summer Block Party, the event Karen had branded as her personal coronation. Balloons. Bounce houses. A country band. And way too much Pinterest-level decor. I watched from my porch as cars poured in. Then 3 vehicles turned down my driveway like they owned it. One of them was Karen's Range Rover. Parked dead center, blocking my garage and mailbox. I walked down calmly. Phone recording in my pocket. Karen. Move the cars. This is private property. She spun around in her coral blazer. Clipboard in one hand. A glass of white wine in the other. Her smile was pure performance. Ethan. So glad you're joining the festivities. The new policy clearly states. The new policy is illegal, I cut in. Voice even. I've warned you multiple times. County records are clear. This is trespassing. A small crowd was forming. Karen's voice rose an octave. Playing to the audience. Everyone. Can you believe this? He's ruining the event over a few feet of concrete. This is exactly the kind of selfish attitude we're trying to change in Willow Creek. I pulled out my phone. Opened the deed PDF. And held it up. Here's the county stamp. Your policy doesn't override Texas property law. Move them or I call the sheriff. She laughed, a brittle, theatrical sound. Go ahead. I'd love to explain to the officers how you're harassing the HOA president. So I did. Deputy Ramirez arrived 20 minutes later. Looking like he'd already had a long day. Karen immediately launched into her greatest hits. Officer. This man has been aggressive toward me for months. He's threatening legal action. He's filming me without consent. He's creating a hostile environment. Ramirez looked at the cars. Then at me. Sir. You got proof this is your property? I handed him the folder I'd prepared weeks ago, deed. Plat map. Photos of the sign. Time-stamped videos of previous incidents. He flipped through it. Eyebrows rising. Ma'am, he said to Karen. This driveway is clearly private. You can't just declare it community space. These vehicles need to move. Karen's face flushed crimson. But the HOA board voted. Ma'am. The HOA doesn't outrank the county clerk. Move the cars. For a second she looked like she might actually comply. Then her eyes landed on the growing crowd of neighbors holding plates of brisket and staring. Her ego took the wheel. She stepped closer to me. Voice dripping venom. You think you're so clever, Ethan? Hiding behind your little papers while you isolate your daughter and refuse to be part of this community? I've heard how you treat people. That was the first time she'd said the rumors to my face. The crowd went dead quiet. I kept my voice low. You've spent months telling people I'm a bad father and a neighborhood threat. All because I wouldn't let you park wherever you wanted. That's not community spirit. Karen. That's bullying with extra paperwork. She snapped. In one dramatic motion she kicked her own driver's side door, hard. The metallic thud echoed. Then she pointed at me. Eyes wild. He pushed me. Officer. He assaulted me. Look. My car is damaged because of him. Deputy Ramirez didn't even blink. Ma'am. I watched you kick your own vehicle. That's not how this works. The second deputy stepped forward. You're under arrest for filing a false report and disorderly conduct. The handcuffs clicked. Karen's face went from rage to pure, unfiltered panic as the reality hit. The woman who had spent a year terrorizing the neighborhood with fines and rumors was now being walked past the bounce house in cuffs while parents whispered and kids pointed. Her coral blazer looked ridiculous under the Texas sun. The video from my security cameras, plus the deputy's body cam, went everywhere. Local news picked it up. HOA president arrested after driveway dispute. Comments were brutal and glorious. But Karen wasn't done being a cautionary tale. 2 weeks later her attorney filed a lawsuit: harassment, defamation, emotional distress, the usual kitchen sink nonsense. They demanded I remove my offensive private driveway sign and pay damages. At the deposition, her lawyer tried the toxic masculinity in suburbia angle. My attorney just smiled and queued up the compilation video. The judge watched 30 seconds of Karen screaming, kicking her own car, and claiming assault. Then paused it. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said dryly, "is there any part of this footage where you are not the architect of your own problems?" The courtroom actually laughed. The case was dismissed in under an hour. Karen was ordered to pay my legal fees plus a tidy sum for the repeated trespassing and the false police report. But the real kill shot came from inside the HOA. A quiet treasurer finally grew a spine and revealed Karen had been borrowing association funds for her personal wine tastings, professional headshots, and a suspiciously large community appreciation party at her house. Nearly $9,400. The board called an emergency meeting. Karen showed up trying to spin it as investments in neighborhood branding. The vote to remove her was unanimous. She sold her house 3 months later and moved to a different subdivision. Rumor has it the new HOA there already has her number. The morning after the board vote, 2 longtime neighbors knocked on my door with coffee and an apology. They admitted they'd bought into the rumors because it was easier than standing up to her. They asked if I'd consider joining the board as an advisor, just to keep things reasonable. I said yes. But only on one condition: the first new rule would be mind your own damn driveway. These days the neighborhood feels lighter. People wave again. Kids cut through yards without fear of a citation. And every time I pull into my long, empty driveway, I glance at that wooden sign I repainted last weekend. Private driveway, no parking, boundaries matter. It's not about keeping people out. It's about reminding everyone, including overzealous Karens in coral blazers, that rules are supposed to protect people, not feed egos. So here's the question I want you to answer honestly in the comments: when someone weaponizes community to control and shame you, is staying silent and documenting the smart move, or should you have gone nuclear sooner? Was Ethan the villain for protecting what was legally his? Or was Karen the real threat all along? Drop your story below. I read every single one.